something that was not so straightforward were the Men World Championships.
Oh.
Okay.
Should I start my apologies now or later?
Oh my gosh. Everything that we were saying last week, just forget about it. Throw it in the garbage. Throw it away. Because there were some absolutely wild upsets.
If anybody says they predicted Japan, Brazil, and France to not make it out of pool play, you're just lying. It's not true because nobody saw that coming.
We saw them advance. We had Brazil going all the way to the final, didn't we?
Yes.
Crazy. Anyway, our bracket is more than just busted. It is like disintegrated. It's a pile of ashes there on the side.
Yeah.
Gone. But we're going to dive into what happened at Men's World Championships this week and, what the lay of the land looks like for the rest of that tournament. Let's get started. Our rundown for the week. There was not a lot of movement in the top 10 of the NCAA. But we will go over the biggest movers from the top 25 again. I would say the biggest positive was TCU improved upon their program record ranking from last week, and they jumped up even higher from 15 to 9.
I know they got hammered by Texas this week, but they continue to impress me. They're beating the teams they quote-unquote should beat. And they're playing well. So I think that's well-earned. I like them. I think they're going to continue to get better.
They were on my positive surprise list last week.
Yeah,
and I don't
to
think
TCU.
Getting smashed by Texas is not going to affect their ranking too much because they were 9. So I think they'll stay close to that, the rankings at this point when this episode is released. Texas A&M dropped to number 14 from 8.
They lost a couple games they probably shouldn't have. I think they will end up climbing back into the top 10 eventually. I think they'll iron some things out, but they did have a couple losses, so that's a fair drop.
Tennessee entered the top 25 after being unranked, and Pitt keeps climbing back. We remember their preseason ranking was number 3. They plummeted a little bit after week 1. Tough start for them, but they're back up to number 5, so they are clawing their way back into the conversation.
They beat Penn State handily this week. I know it wasn't 4, but they were in control of that match. They've kind of ironed it out since it started a little slow at the beginning of the season. I mean,
AVCA first serve is a risk.
Yeah.
The preseason is always like a balancing act. You want to play tough teams so your RPI is good, but then you also want to make sure you're beating those top teams so your ranking doesn't drop. It's like finessing the schedule in a way that like keeps you in that top group conversation, but you also need to make sure that you're going to win, so otherwise you drop. It's really hard. I don't know how they come up with their schedules. It's challenging.
Well, and Pitt lost a few players. They're trying to figure out...
More than a few.
Well, yeah. They're trying to figure out what their offense is going to look like. What do they have? Who can they rely on? They have Babcock still, but it's not shocking that it took them a couple weeks to kind of find a rhythm.
Well, and I'm pretty sure they come up with their preseason schedule before the season even starts. So
You mean before Torrey Stafford left?
Yeah, exactly. They had no clue what was about to go down. So anyway, good for them. And finally, the voters finally had enough of UCLA. They are gone. Gone from the top 25. They let them hang around as long as they possibly could. And then finally they're like, okay, enough's enough. You're gone.
I'm going to say never to return this season.
Oh, dear. You heard it here first, folks. We'll see what happens. Some match notes, let's call it, from the solid matches we saw this week. Number 1, Kentucky played Louisville, 2 top 6 teams. That match went 5.
I'm not surprised.
You got the in-state rivalry.
Yeah.
It was hosted by Louisville this year. Kentucky, I don't think they've won it since, was it 2019?
It had been, I want to say 4 or 5 years since they'd beaten them.
Yeah.
I think they were 0-4 against them. They might not play every year, but
I think it is a yearly thing, which I think is cool.
I do too. I like those rivalries. It's something to look forward to. It's always on the schedule, easy to get up for.
Well, now that like Creighton is better, it's like a similar thing that can happen in Nebraska with like 2 solid programs. Anyway, very interesting match.
Hit me with your initial thoughts, because this one, in fairness, we watched a ton of men's volleyball this week, but we did watch this match.
I feel like I always start with a negative, and so I was trying real hard to think of a positive, but the negative jumped out first.
Well, and in fairness to people who think Sarah's always negative, whenever she talks about her own matches, having coached her, she always starts with the negatives for herself too.
I don't
and quite
discriminate.
Frankly, never says anything positive about how she plays. So this is not unique to the podcast. This is just how her brain works. This is how we have to be better to be the best. Just throwing it out there.
He's not wrong. Bottom line is I don't discriminate. Okay. I'm harder on myself than anybody. Okay, let's try to start with the positive here. Kara Cressy started the match
On fire.
very well.
Set 1, she was unbelievable.
Yes. And yeah.
It went downhill from there. But this is... So I think we saw the fatal flaw in Louisville that we talked about last week.
Yes.
Kara Cressy is on. I think she scored 7 points in that first set. Don't quote me on that, but it was 7 or 8 points, I believe.
Well, they want her to be the focal point of their offense, which is great. You know, we love a middle.
100%.
We love a middle.
100%. And I watched them play that first set. They passed well. They ran Kara. The outsides were open and scoring. And I thought, man, Louisville looks really good. Cressy's playing well. They are grooving. That was the best set they played.
Yeah. And then the passing kind of got pulled off the net, and when Cressy's not an option, things kind of fall apart a little bit.
Well, and it was interesting. There were multiple occasions in this game where both teams gave up runs of 4 or 5 points. I saw that both teams had certain rotations where they really, really struggled, and the opposing teams took advantage of that, both from a serving and a defensive standpoint. And so you had these big swings in this game where Cressy was in the front row, they would push 4. Then she would go to the back row and they couldn't score.
Yeah.
And Kentucky would come out and run a few serves and the block would look really good. And it wasn't clean side-out volleyball. There were definitely defensive runs and taking advantage of certain rotations.
Well, both teams have rotations that they're very susceptible in. I will say I am liking Brooke Bultema, the middle for Kentucky.
She's got some juice behind her.
When they got that connection flowing,
yeah,
outstanding.
And that was something we talked about for Kentucky, needing more options out of the middle of the court, whether that be the pipe or the middle, given that their outsides were hitting 100-plus balls a match.
The libero, Molly Tuzzo, girl needs to learn how to set. Here's my thing. I'm going to just tell you, I'm bothered by the fact that this girl insists on jump setting every ball when she's spraying them all over the place. Let's keep both feet on the ground until we can dial in a perfect set at least 8 times out of 10. Then, if you're feeling good, think about jump setting. But girl, you're jump setting all over the place and these balls are literally unhittable.
She is what I call a flashy libero. She likes to make the big plays. I watched her let some balls drop. She overpassed a free ball. She got aced a few times. For me in that match, I noticed her in the wrong ways.
You don't want to notice the libero, okay? If you're noticing the libero, it's usually because they're not playing well.
I didn't think she had a great game. And again, don't get me wrong, they played 5 sets. She made some really good plays, but there were some detail things, like you said, some of the setting, some of the passing, that was not there. She does have a really good serve, though. I will give her that.
Do you think Kentucky's left side combo is the best in the country? Because I heard that so many times on the broadcast.
I do.
Okay. Adam approves.
DeLay and Hudson can score at any time from both the back row and the front row. Now, I will say Eva Hudson started really slow. Kentucky...
She picked it up, though, when it mattered.
Well, they changed the setter. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Originally, I felt Hudson was getting jammed up in the front row. The balls were inside. She couldn't hit the line. And then they switched the setter and they switched the right side.
Daly came in and did a great job. I don't think Thigpen played particularly well on the right side.
No, I thought she actually turned the match around for them. She gave them another option, and I thought the setter switch was on point. Because the setter got Hudson going, and she was really good down the stretch.
I feel like Hudson likes that setter.
I do too.
And then O'Brien connects better with other players, maybe.
So I'm curious to see, for me, there's a legitimate question on the right side and setting position after watching that match in terms of who's going to take that spot.
I think people are going to be so pissed that you said that. From the setter perspective, I think people are very high on Cassie O'Brien.
I said I really liked her. She's a freshman. She came in. She was one of the players I wanted to watch. But watching that match, there was some inconsistency, and the other setter came in and connected with Hudson, who was struggling, and we made the right side shift. So I'm not saying O'Brien, and she got injured. She was massaging her leg.
Oh, the cramp.
She got a cramp. Now, cramps are always interesting to me. If things aren't going well, you get a cramp, somebody else comes in. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it was a little coincidental. But that is something to watch with them.
Going back to Louisville, I feel like they are very one-dimensional.
Well, they're one-dimensional when Cressy can't get the ball.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They're great when she can.
Your whole team revolves around Cressy, which, again, love a middle, but it's also high risk.
Yeah, again, they're outside.
Why not serve her short every time? Jam up her approach angle, serve her short, block up her approach angle, and then your block defense is so much more straightforward.
And I was surprised Kentucky didn't do that.
They did it once, and Cressy got taken to the ground on a short serve, and then things just fell apart. And I was like,
now, their passing did fall apart with the aggressive serving in general, so it was effectively the same, but I think that's a strategy against them moving forward, and they're going to have to figure out how to deal with it.
And I'll say it again. I'm not a fan of the left side combo for Louisville.
Okay, but I think you need to put a caveat on that, right? Chicoine and Peterson are good players, but there were a ton of digs in that match.
Chicoine doesn't have a Hudson to take the load. You know what 100%. I mean? Peterson doesn't have a De Beer or a Charity Looper to take the load. They're both I think they are both secondary type left side players.
I totally agree. They need a banger. Who do you like better, Chicoine or Peterson? I thought Peterson played better in that match than Chicoine did.
I haven't been impressed with Chicoine this season. I also said it last week. I don't think Peterson's the answer. So
Peterson's not the answer if they want to win a natty with somebody who can score. But she was not bad. When Cressy's firing and she doesn't have a solid two-person block, she can put the ball away. She scored a bunch of
Anybody
points.
Can score with a one-man block.
I'm not saying one man. Anyway,
broken block.
What I saw coming down the stretch was after those long rallies or during those long rallies, DeLay and Hudson were able to put the ball away more effectively than Peterson and Chicoine. That was a huge difference because they stopped being able to get Cressy the ball.
I will say, last thing, I am really liking Cabello, the setter for Louisville.
Yes.
She was in that 6-2 formation for the majority of last season as a freshman, kind of won that spot in tight moments during postseason play last year. I am really liking her. I like aggressive. How she's able to set with pace to the outside for these left sides that aren't necessarily huge bangers. I'm really liking her. We also had Wisconsin, Florida that we watched.
I wasn't.
Maybe Collier went off.
Yeah.
Hit negative in set one and then completely dominated after that. Ended with 27 kills, I want to say, in 4 sets. That's pretty impressive. Florida couldn't stop her.
No, Florida couldn't stop her. They didn't look like they had a great game plan around that. And they made bad mistakes. There were balls they let drop. There were setting issues out of system.
Numerous set points in set 4.
Yes.
It went 37-35 or 35-33 or something wild. Stuckey, they get a transition opportunity for the set, and Stuckey sets a back row ball to this girl who came in 2 points before instead of setting Jordan Bird or something. I was like, what are you doing? Or set a Gus. Why are you setting this girl who just came in when you have 2 people who can score? I don't know.
That was the case of trying to make the sneaky set.
Sneaky.
No.
It doesn't work.
At that point, you got to set your bangers.
When you're at the end of the match, you're not trying to be sneaky, okay? We're not trying to fool anybody. We need to get the ball to the people who get the job done, and that is why they get the job done, because they score when everybody knows they're getting the ball. Period.
And Collier was banging angle, and their defense was sucked into the court. I thought they should have been able to dig a few more balls. They looked disjointed to me watching that match. It was not smooth on the Florida side, and I thought Florida, I know the sets were close, but I thought they would look better. I thought this would be a better game.
Well, they just dropped a match to Marquette this weekend as well.
Yeah. Florida was my dark horse team, and they've got some work to do. They're not all on the same page.
Wisconsin, however, their team identity has had to completely shift. They are not the tallest team anymore. Their blocking is 96th in the country when it's been 1 or 2 for the last 4 seasons. So they have a complete identity shift going on.
I'm very curious to see how they do in Big Ten play. I thought Furbringer played well. I think she's comfortable
steady.
running this offense. She had some blocks. She serves well.
Carter Booth, she was running Carter Booth well.
Yeah. And Mimi Collier likes a little bit of a faster set, so I think that works in her favor.
Grace Egan, I think, is doing a decent job on the right.
Yeah.
The Serbian girl. They're finding their way. Do I think they're going to be a top 5 team? I don't think so.
I think their ceiling is a little lower than some of the other top teams. But if they can get 2 or 3 players playing at a really high level in a particular match, I think they can beat anyone. But I think that it's going to take consistently high play from 2 or 3 athletes for them to beat really good teams. They don't have an it player like some of the other teams.
Collier, I think you could argue is. She was unstoppable.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, when you get to overtime, it just takes one mistake for the set to be out of your hands. She was automatic.
100%.
Set 4.
She was fantastic in this match. I need to see her do that.
She's already gotten National Player of the Week this year. You guys, can we talk about this role reversal going on right now? Since when am I the one defending a player?
It's too early for me to put her with the likes of Babcock or Stafford or Martin, these players who can carry the load match in and match out. Let's talk about this at the beginning of November, and I'm not saying she can't do it. I need to see more.
Okay, the last match we're going to touch on, Nebraska-Creighton went 5, but they did set an NCAA record that for not postseason. There was over 17,000 people at this match.
Oof.
Nebraska, like I said, squeaked it out in 5. We did not watch this one, but I have received a bunch of questions about Nebraska's system, so I want to address one of those now. One of the questions that we've received is, can you give your analysis of the libero situation at Nebraska to a non-expert? It seems like Choboy can't be a libero because she doesn't have the serve-receive skills. Mouch is a great passer, but lately her defense has seemed poor. What would you do if you were a coach at Nebraska? And then a follow-up question to that from someone else was, is it weird that Nebraska is playing so many rotations with both Mouch and Choboy on the court? To answer question number 2, I would say this seems to be Nebraska's MO. We saw them have 2 to 3 littles on the court at the same time for the last several seasons.
Yeah.
The reason this person was asking is they're like, oh, you only have 3 attack options at any time when Bergen Riley's at the front row. I feel like Nebraska's fine with that because they've been running Jackson on the slide, Murray on the pipe, and then the left side as well.
They only need one back row option, and they can move that around.
And with Jackson running the slide, it's rare that you'll see them run a back row ball on the right side over that anyway. So that's not weird to me because that's Nebraska's system, ball control you to death.
Yeah.
The other part, however, I agree with this statement.
I would take the passing libero.
No, I completely Lainey Choboy has been a defensive sub her whole career at Nebraska. She comes in to serve and play defense. Mouch was the top receiver in the NCAA last season statistically. So yes, your statement, 100% correct. I would run a 2 libero system personally, but
100%.
That goes against Nebraska's system. They don't play hardly anybody. I want to say they play 2 players, 6 rotations, Harper Murray and Bergen Riley, and that has been their thing for years. I love a 6 rotation right side. Maybe because I was one, I'm a little bit
biased.
Having a 6 rotation right side would alleviate some of that. You could run a 2 libero system, put your passing libero in for, serve receive and vice versa. But that's just not the system they run. They don't have the 6 rotation players developed, or they don't use them So this is what they're stuck with.
But you can't tell me you don't have another defensive player who you could put in, even if you're running a 2 libero system.
No, they do. They just never play her. I think it's Macy Basinger or something.
So I would give Mouch a few more matches to settle in defensively to see where she gets to. In my opinion, the passing is the first priority.
I would say,
you want to be able to run Jackson. You want your setter to be in system all of the time. That just makes it harder on your opponents. The more first ball kills you can get, the less defense you have to play anyway. Passing is the priority for me, and then you kind of hope she settles in and figures out the defensive side, and I think Danny's teams are generally really good defensively, so I would trust Danny to work with her to kind of up that level, and then you have Choboy coming in and playing defense. If you get halfway through the season and for whatever reason Mouch just can't figure it out defensively, I would go to the 2 libero system and then sub in the next defensive player in that regard.
Well, I think it's worth having Mouch as a libero period because she's only a sophomore.
Yeah,
like
totally.
If she figures it out, you've got her for 2 seasons past this, which is not the case with Choboy. So That's what I would do. As we said, we focused predominantly on the men's side of things this week, but we just wanted to talk about some of the matches that we did watch because they were quite entertaining. So that is kind of the landscape and where we're at on the NCAA side of things. I know the Power 4 conferences are starting conference play this week, so it'll be interesting to see how the preseason has prepared them for that. What adjustments, if any, we will see from certain teams, but that is where we're standing. Those were the weekly highlights and happenings. A little longer segment today.
All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. And I'm going to start by saying I was wrong.
I think everybody was wrong.
And I apologize to Turkey, who did not collapse in the playoffs. Well done.
Adam was like, they're going down first round.
There's so many storylines and there's so many things to cover with this World Championships. And the YouTube feed was blowing up with people wanting our takes on all of this happenings and teams not making it. So where I would like to start is I would like to look at the 3 teams who we expected to do really well in France, Brazil, and Japan, and just what are your observations? What are your thoughts? How did we get here? And just dissect that before we get into the teams who are still playing. I want to start with France, who we had Brazil going to the final mostly because of their draw. I think France not making it out of pool in the fashion that they did was probably the biggest shocker of World Championships. And they brought their big boys. There was a 0% chance that this was going to happen going into World Championships.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
They lost to Argentina in 5.
Yeah.
And they lost to Finland in 5, finishing 3rd in pool.
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts, because we watched both of these matches.
I have a couple thoughts. First of all, the sheer number of serves France was missing. Against Finland in particular, they gave them an entire set in missed serves.
So I'm going to throw these stats at you while you bring up these points. Okay. So against Argentina, they actually had the same number of missed serves in the match. It was 22 apiece.
Okay.
However, you are correct. Against Finland, 27 missed serves to Finland's 17.
It is really, really hard to win matches if you're giving the team a complete set.
Wild.
Tell me if you agree with this. I understand wanting to be aggressive and the need to be aggressive on your serve, 100%. Do you think France's ability to maybe not do 100% serve, maybe do a 70% serve, because technically and systemically you trust yourself to be better than a Finland? Or do you think that is underestimating Finland?
No, they 100% should have made that adjustment against Finland. So what I read in that was we're going to try and dial in our serving so that further on in the competition we're feeling it and we can unload on our serves.
They're looking too far.
And we trust ourselves to be able to win even while we're trying to find our rhythm from the baseline. It came back to bite them. Obviously, I'm not on the bench. I can't speak for their mentality, but that's what it looked like to me. And I kind of thought they had that attitude and mentality through all of pool play.
Un peu laissez-faire. Oui, oui. because it's France.
Sarah's actually fluent in French.
I don't actually speak French like that. I was just, So that was my first thought. My second idea as to what happened is France has won the last 2 Olympics. They've been very successful in recent years. Maybe they just don't have that same drive and level of motivation to win those matches. And maybe it's not as much of a necessity, to get these wins as it is for some other teams. And maybe what we saw was a little bit of complacency.
I agree with that. I think they were obviously prepared. It's not like they got blown out in those matches. So they were playing and they were competing, but it was definitely a different level of urgency than we saw even in the important matches in VNL. Argentina is obviously a really good team. I don't think that they took them lightly, but I think lining up, it's hard to get up for a match against Finland. And I mean absolutely no disrespect to Finland, but when you've won that much and they're in your pool, that's a match where it's, hey, we come in, we warm up, we can play at 80% and we're gonna go on. And I just don't think when it came down to it, they couldn't flip the switch in those big moments. And you see it from the service line because that's an entirely mental skill. They just weren't sharp enough. And if that's a byproduct of having won so much, not being able to get into that mindset for pool play matches, it's something along those lines because they weren't crisp. The other thing I will say is their left sides were not very good. They brought Engapeth. You're supposed to have all of your big guns here, all of your options. I went deep diving into the stats, and I combined all of the outside attacks. I'm not including the right side. All of the outside attacks during the VNL. So Engapeth was not there, so he was not included in this. As an outside core, they hit 358 on the entire competition, which is a very, very good number.
Yeah.
Now, you would expect World Championships is an easier tournament, especially in pool play, and you upgraded, theoretically, that position, bringing in Engapeth. You would expect to be at the same level or higher. And during those matches, they hit 259. That is a marked difference from your outside core. When you put those 3 things together, the serving issues, it wasn't a lack of intensity, but a lower intensity that we've seen in big matches from them, and the left side struggles from a scoring standpoint. If teams come to play, and both Argentina and Finland did, you're not going to win.
Okay, what about Brazil?
All right. I saw a couple things for Brazil. Now, Brazil lost matches very closely. For people who weren't dialed into everything, there was a 3-way tie for first place in that pool. And the only reason that Brazil didn't make it was because they dropped 1 set to China, and the other 2 teams in their pool did not drop a set to China. Brazil was right there. I think they needed to push Serbia to 5 or win 1 set to make that a tie and then go out ahead. And Serbia beat them in 3. What I saw from Brazil, and we had this a little bit, we talked about this last time, and people were not happy with my assessment, but it's going to stand because I saw the same thing. Cachopa struggled to set the left sides. There were so many unhittable balls. Cachopa runs a right side, middle, pipe combination beautifully. And quite frankly, Brazil often does this very, very well. However, on the left side, the balls were often low and inside and tight. And what I think was happening was they were trying to run that ball so fast that the location was just inconsistent. I'm not sure. Arthur specifically, he's not a fast ball hitter.
He's like 6'10".
He's 6'10". He was volleying some balls. If you need to slow it down to give Arthur a chance to reach high and hit deep, give him a chance to score. And I thought he was handcuffed there. And Lucarelli's the same thing. He jumps well. He can handle the fast sets a little bit better. But overall, there were too many unhittable or times where the left side was in a compromised position. And when we're talking about losing sets by 2 or 3 points, that's an issue.
I don't disagree with you. It was all the sets, not all, a lot of sets to the left side were trailing onto the net.
Now, the other thing that I saw, Alain didn't play poorly, but he also didn't play as well as he played in VNL.
Yeah.
He hit .284, which is not bad, but it's not good, especially if your left sides aren't scoring.
The statistical standards in men's and women's are different too. Like 284 for a left side in women's volleyball is like pretty good. But there's also a lot more defense being played. So that is not the same for men's, I don't think.
Fair. But he also got the garbage balls.
Okay.
And we're talking efficiency here. So errors, blocks as well. What I will say, Alain was a black hole on defense. There were so many times where he was in position and got hit with the ball, or it was half a step one way or another, and he was just not making plays. And Bernardo was about to lose his mind. He's like, the game plan is good. You're standing in the right place. Execute the dig. And there may have been a few words before the dig, but it was just not good enough. And again, we're talking about matches where it's 2 points. You've got to make those plays, especially when you're in the right place. He made one dig against Serbia, and I counted, there were 7 balls I thought he should have had touches on. Let's say he doesn't dig all 7. Let's say he digs 3 more. That's 3 more opportunities, and you need 2 points. It just, that part also wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I thought that Mikey and Lucarelli do a good job playing defense. I thought the blocking schemes for Brazil were good. I think that Arthur has a little ways to go on his defensive game. Brazil was close. They couldn't close it out. They missed a few key plays. I liked what I saw from them. Arthur's young. There's some room for growth there, I think, with this team. I thought their performance, even though they didn't make it, was better than France's. We had a ton of questions about Japan.
Well, we did.
Yes, we did. Japan lost a shocker to Turkey. And then I boldly predicted that they would hammer Canada, and that did not happen.
Nope.
Canada laid the boots to them, and then they were eliminated.
Japan had
just
a rough
like
go.
That. They had a rough go. I'm curious what you saw.
Oh, okay. I honestly felt a little bad for Japan, and I don't usually feel bad for anybody. But in this case, balls that were close or any balls that could go either way, none of them went Japan's way.
All of them went
Turkey's way. And none of them went Japan's way. When stuff like that happens, they would make a great swing and it would be like an inch out. And it was a great swing, great choice, just missed. Or a scramble play, something weird happens and it just like doesn't go their way. And so it was happening consistently. At that point, it's just, it's so hard to watch because it's just like they could not catch a break at all.
I thought specifically Mio Ora. Normally he's finding fingers. He's finding holes in the block. He's catching sidelines.
He was making good swings that were missing by barely anything.
You would see on the Bolt 6, it was slivers of space. And I'm watching this from a coaching perspective going, I would tell you to make that same swing again.
Yeah.
You hit that shot 85% of the time, and it goes your way. There was a little bit of loaded dice in the Turkey match, I thought specifically. And Turkey played well.
Turkey played lights out.
Yeah.
But I would say Miura's serve also wasn't working. The Japanese left side combo of Ran and Ishikawa, they didn't score enough.
Well, statistically, they were terrible.
Yeah.
Against Turkey, Ran went 1 for 22, hit 0.46, and Ishikawa went 6 for 23, hitting 261. And they only ran the middle 10 times.
Yeah.
Lackluster production from the left sides in that match. And the big thing to me was Turkey out-aced them 7-1. And those statistics for Japan, they need to be serving well.
You need to be serving well, but also as an undersized team in the men's landscape, you need to pass well to give yourself a chance. And then on top of that, you and I talked about this. They were running such a vanilla offense. And I know that they have had success running that way for a while. But you need to like create some movement in the block or like distract the block defense a little bit with some like combo plays or
a pipe
something.
ball.
And granted, like if you're getting ace that much, your passing's not outstanding. We need to get a little more creative to make up for the things that maybe are not your strengths compared to other teams.
So I felt that they're moving away from their typical identity. And my question to you is, do you think that's because of the setter change, or do you think that's the coaching influence?
My ins, obviously, I don't know.
No, but
I would guess it's the foreign coaching they're bringing in. What they're running right now is a very Western style of volleyball. Even going, like I played pro in Asia for 4 years in different countries. That is a thing that I really had to adjust to as a Western player going to Asian countries, is how reliant those teams and the leagues were on running fast combo, like deceiving decoy plays. As Westerners, we don't really think about it. My instinct is it's a coaching thing because it's just probably not on the radar of those coaches.
But overload a middle left side, run a pipe over top of the middle. If you're going to play a more quote-unquote Western style of volleyball, your middle has to be a threat. They're missing the key component to doing that. Turkey had their outside hitters. I feel bad for them. They were up against 2-3 blocks all night. And
well, we said the same thing about the women's side. They don't run the middle enough. Finally, in Worlds, we said, wow, they ran the middle a bunch. I think it's a systemic issue.
I'm not sure the style matches their strengths quite appropriately for whichever reason they're doing that. And then on the Canada side, the story for me was 10 blocks to 2, and Canada outdug them 51 days to 44, and that should never happen.
Shouldn't happen. It
was the same thing. Like Mia Ora hit 136, 3 for 22. Ishikawa hit negative. Rayan actually got subbed out. I thought the left side who came in actually played pretty well, but they did not have it for whatever reason.
It just wasn't a good tournament for them at all.
I think they're getting away from the things that make them successful. You see Rand, he wants to zig and zag and hit balls and cheer. Mia Ora is capable of running a little more kind of up and down on his own. He just had nothing go his way. The dice were loaded against him in this tournament, and sometimes that happens. The left sides struggled. So
this kind of builds on a question that we got that we'll address now. In why are there so many upsets on the men's side? This person gave 2 possible reasons. Do you think programs aren't willing to give their younger players a chance? Or do you think that maybe the teams that have had success, their game style has gone a little stale and they're not evolving? What do you think?
That's such an interesting question. There's a couple things that come to mind with that question. One is, quite frankly, World Championships is not the time to play your young players. You play the people who have earned time, who have earned the spots. Well, you see the ins and outs in VNL because it is such a long. And that's where you play your young players. That's where you figure out who's ready to perform. World Championships is the tournament. It is what you are trying to win. I don't think for this tournament that is applicable. You look at an Engapeth situation, for example. Didn't play at all in VNL. I believe he was injured this summer. Coming back to Worlds, it was pretty clear he had not been playing all summer. Do you know what I mean? To me, that's not a case of not giving a young player a chance. Engapeth makes this better. Okay. He either wasn't ready to go or wasn't. Okay. The other thing I will say is that there are a crop of young players coming up for teams that are not traditionally powerhouses who are upsetting the apple cart, so to speak. So the top 5 scorers from Worlds currently are all from teams you would not expect them to be from. Now, before you tell me that stats aren't everything, I understand that they're playing some more 5-setters, that they're getting more balls than some of the other teams. The teams maybe aren't as well-rounded. However, their hitting percentages are also off the chart. So I want to go over this just to give you some context. Regers from Belgium is leading the tournament, and I'm not going to go by points. I'm going to go by attack percentage. He's hitting .454 on the tournament. That is outrageous because they are setting him a ton and he is delivering. That guy is so fun to watch.
He jumps very well.
It's spectacular. You know, when you've got a guy like that who's making a difference and scoring that many points, and Belgium's got some veterans around them, they've got a couple other young players, they come out of nowhere and they make you play. And he was unconscious. Then you have Jokela from Finland, who he has the second most points, but he's hitting 372. That's very good. You have Ai from Netherlands, third highest score, hitting 301. The opposite from, or the left side from Turkey, Lagunja, he's hitting 446.
That's crazy.
Nikolov from Bulgaria. And so they're coming up, and I do think that having something to prove and having a chip on your shoulder and coming out and being like, I'm coming for these guys, it makes a difference. It gives you a little bit of an edge. And I think we've seen that so far in World Championships.
We talked about the teams that we thought would do really well and didn't advance. But then some teams have been pretty big surprises, and two in particular are Finland and Belgium.
Yeah, like I said, they have the two top scorers in the tournament, and they've got pieces around them. So, I mean, Belgium has a pro league. Finland has a pro league. They have a couple vets on there.
It's not a great pro league.
No, but these guys are playing relatively full-time, and then all of a sudden you've got a couple young guys come in who can score points. That kind of turns the corner for the program.
I think it's also a, like, we have nothing to lose mentality.
Absolutely.
And, like, how exciting is it for these guys to play against, like, their heroes, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're coming up, you want to kind of measure yourself against those athletes that you've watched for a long time. So you get so hyped to play them, and then you're having success and you're like, oh my gosh, am I about to beat these people? So I can see it being very exciting for them, which is like kind of, you know, the opposite situation we were talking about with like a France who has had a lot of success for a long time. Yeah, it's been really interesting to see, because even like some of the teams like Duro on Belgium, he's not like a young guy, he's been around. He's feeling it, and it's really cool to see.
The youth revitalizes you.
Yes.
Because I believe he's 36.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
I love that.
What do you think playing for a contract means? Do you think that factors in? You know, you've got these young opposites, these young outsides who, you know, have played mostly in their home leagues up until this point. That's not all true. Some of them have been in some other leagues, but this can up your contract value, I feel like.
It is too late for this season, but like VNL is typically, you know, a place where these clubs can see what you're made of, offer you that contract. Belgium just qualified for VNL for next year. Finland's case, like, this is a great opportunity for those guys. Everybody is watching World Championships, and like club presidents and owners and agents and everything, they're taking notes on like all these athletes. So yeah, you want to show up when you have a chance, because like a lot of teams don't. And like speaking from my own experience, when I was playing, Canada wasn't involved or good enough to play in these things. So I had to rely completely on my pro season to be able to get those opportunities, and then like have my agent sell me. Having this opportunity and playing well in this stage is huge.
All right, one more quick thing about World Champs before we get into our new predictions, because the old ones are completely out the window and useless. But I have to say, Turkey came to Worlds with pretty much the same roster that they went to VNL with. They are worlds better. So I hope
they're a completely different team. I don't get it.
I hope that coach is getting paid triple what his salary is, because for them to be that much better in that short time
does that happen?
It's well, I'll tell you one thing. The Lagunja brothers are just playing out of their minds. If we look at, I also did a comparison for Worlds and VNL for them. The one hit 230 at VNL is hitting 373 at Worlds, and the opposite, hitting 294 at VNL, is hitting 446.
There you go.
So
easy peasy.
That's pretty much the difference. All right, hit me with your new predictions for the rest of Worlds.
So at the time of this recording, there have been 4 matches played. So we know that one of the quarterfinals is Italy versus Belgium, and another quarter is Turkey versus Poland. We are still waiting on the other 2. So For the round of 16, we've got Tunisia versus Czech Republic.
I think Czech is going to win that one.
Okay, I have no idea. Then we have Serbia versus Iran. I also have no idea.
I watched Serbia play a couple matches, and I liked what I saw. I think they're playing well. I'm going to go with Serbia on this one, actually. I think Serbia will win this one.
Okay, so you have Czech versus Serbia.
And I think Serbia is going to win and go to the semi.
Okay, and then for the other rounds of 16, Bulgaria versus Portugal. I think Bulgaria will win. USA versus Slovenia. I'm going to say Slovenia. Although Micah Christensen is a massive difference maker for USA, okay?
I watched them play after we did the segment of who improved the most. And just watching him run that offense, I immediately regretted not pumping his tires more in that episode. I think he did a fantastic job. And I voted against Karch and USA against Cuba. I'm not going to do it this time. I think Karch gets the boys going. I think USA is going to win.
And then who do you think will win, USA or Bulgaria?
I think USA is going to go to the semi.
I'm going to take a flyer here and say Bulgaria is going to the semi. But then I think Poland will beat Turkey. They're just the best in the world right now.
Yeah.
And I think Italy will beat Belgium.
I'm actually really looking forward to that game. I want to see Reggers against the Italian bloc. I want to see how long the magic can keep going. But I think Italy will win that one as well.
I think Poland will be in the final.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Bulgaria in the final.
I'm going Poland, USA in the final. Poland winning the tournament.
Okay. I think Poland will win it all. But I'm just like, that was my random, let's throw it out there.
Love it.
Okay, let's see how wrong we can be. But we can't be as wrong as we were last week, so we're already ahead.
So if you have not been paying attention to the Men's World Championships, you need to. The parity, the volleyball, it's exciting. There are players making a name for themselves. There are upsets happening everywhere. I think the final playoffs are going to be spectacular. There's no way our predictions are right. And so it'll be fun to watch these matches. I think they're going to be super competitive, and I think it's going to be a great week of men's volleyball.
All right, it is time for listener questions. Question 1, what are your thoughts on the men's jump float serves? Does it need to improve so reception breaks down more, or should they leave it alone and rely on the block?
This is totally situational. To be fair, there are some guys who have great jump floats.
I think men's jump float serves are a joke compared to women's.
I think in general that statement is accurate. Women's jump floats are more effective than men's jump floats, but I think it's for a couple reasons. One, you don't have as many women who have bombing spin serves. So the men's float serve is, hey, you're our get it in guy. So you need to make sure that serve is in, because we already have these guys taking rips from the baseline. It's situationally dependent, right? If you can hit a flat float serve across a middles approach or to a specific side or eliminate an option, I think that probably could be utilized more in the men's game, taking a little bit more risk but still making it a safe serve. But it's also dependent on how good your block defense is and what you're trying to do. There's a lot of factors that go along with how aggressive the float servers are in this regard, in my opinion.
So your answer is either one, depending on the situation?
Yeah, it's situational. I will say, in general, it's not as effective as on the women's side because the net's lower. They get, for instance, better trajectory, and it can be more of a high-risk serve, where that's not the case on the men's side.
Question 2, how do fans feel when their coaches are helping other countries?
I've never thought about this, and I don't think anybody else thinks about it in general.
I mean, it's a way for them to earn a living. I've never thought about this, but I saw the question and I was like, oh, interesting. I guess I've never thought.
Yeah, and I mean, in this case, there's a lot of Italian coaches
There's a lot
out
of
there.
Italian coaches.
But if you look at other sports, a lot of Canadian
in beach
coaches.
volleyball, there's a ton of Brazilian coaches.
Yeah, I think
Canadian hockey coaches.
Yeah, wherever the sport is kind of homegrown and you have a lot of expertise. I mean, people are looking for jobs, and I've never looked at a Canadian coach sideways for hockey. I'm a hockey fan, and said, "Oh man, I can't believe he's coaching that team."
No, because I'm like, there are limited jobs.
Yeah.
And like, if you're good at what you do, take it. Yeah, it was interesting. I've just never thought about it before.
Yeah.
Question 3. Can you speak about the tradition of exchanging mementos before matches at VNL and Worlds? Where does this come from and what are the mementos? So I think this is actually typical across all sports, or a lot of sports. When you have an international competition, you exchange tokens from your country just to commemorate the match. I think international competitions used to be a lot more rare back in the day, so it was like a much bigger deal. So to have like a token from the country that you competed against is like something special. Typically you see them being pins, whether from the country or the National Sport Federation. Sometimes you'll see the captains exchange like pendants to represent the federation. Oftentimes though, it is pins. Question 4. I fell in love with volleyball around the 2007-2008 years. That's my era. Just aging myself. When Penn State, Stanford, Nebraska, and Texas were constantly at the top of the standings and all producing insane volleyball players. What do you think has changed for better and for worse since this era of volleyball? I still look back at all of these teams and think that they'd beat the majority of teams now. Honestly, same. I've had conversations with people about this so often, and if you look at the crop of athletes that were in that era, so many of them went on to have really strong pro careers and really strong national team careers. And I would say you see that, I'm sure somebody is going to pull up some stat and say that I'm wrong, but you see that crop of athletes in that span of time, more of them, I would say the per capita number of athletes from that era played for much longer than we're seeing in other eras. So I think in that era, we saw a lot more 6 rotation athletes, which is more conducive to having an international and a pro career. So I think that is something that has changed for the worse since that time, is the number of 6 rotation athletes has declined substantially. I will say something that has come of that has been a change for the better is that we are seeing a lot more strong teams. You're not seeing just the handful who are consistently dominating. You're seeing a lot more strong programs across the board because you're not getting that specialization anymore.
I was going to talk about the parity and the rivalries at that point in NCAA. When you couldn't leave a school, it was a bigger decision to go there, and you were there for 4 years. So you also...
It was much harder to transfer.
But I also think that allows you more time to grow as an athlete, right? If you can't just transfer out and start everywhere, there's a little more of a hierarchy from freshman to junior, and you learn from your seniors. There's a bit more of a pro mentality in terms of mentorship and what you learn going through that process, when it's not, well, I'm not playing, I'm leaving, I'm going here. And I think that also adds to A, the rivalries, B, earning your spot, and a little more competition internally, which might lead to some of those better international careers.
Yeah, I mean, seniority was definitely more of a thing. But also, I feel like coaches were more inclined to really work on developing their athletes.
Well, you have them for 4 years.
Exactly. It wasn't so easy to just leave. There were, you'd have to sit out for a season perhaps, or, you'd have to jump through so many hoops. So I think players were developed more at their programs at that time. Again, I'm biased because I'm from that era, but I have often thought that teams from that era, the top teams from that era, would beat the top teams from this era. And I'm sure, let's open the floodgates. Let's hear it. That is my come at me statement for the day, because I have one every week so far. Yeah, I've had conversations about this over the years, and I agree with the person who wrote this question, is that I do think that those teams would beat the majority of teams now. Our last question of the week is, what are your thoughts on Kari Spears at Texas?
I picked her up for my fantasy team.
She's on our fantasy team,
Enough
starting
said.
on the opposite. So, we've got 3 Texas girls starting for us. She is one of them.
I mean, I think she's done a fantastic job so far.
Yeah, it's a hard transition coming in from high school to college.
Yeah, she's athletic. She's done a good job. I like her mentality. She's aggressive. once there's a book on you.
Yeah, the sophomore slump, they call it.
So I'm curious to see, once we get into division play, teams see what her tendencies are. They're a little more prepared than they are. Teams, in the preseason, you're working on your own stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. To a certain extent.
Right. But a lot of the times you're internally focused on, this is what we're trying to do. This is the offense. This is the defense. As we get into division play, you're going to start to see more and more game planning, more focus on your opponents. And so when teams have a chance to be able to do that to her, I want to see how she responds. When you take away her favorite shot, can she find another way to score? So those will be the things that I'm looking at, but I think she's done a fantastic job.
As always, thank you to everybody who writes in. We have got quite the list of questions, so I am pulling a handful every week, but keep them coming because we love to receive them and think about them. So yeah, thanks so much.
All right. Looking forward. Watch all of the Men's World Championships. All the games at this point are going to be great. I believe there's 2 a day pretty much for the pre-quarters, and then quarters will happen the same way. So there's going to be great volleyball on. Check it out. I don't have any specific match because at this point they're all going to be good.
And we don't know who's going to win anymore, so whatever.
Looking at the NCAA, a couple matches to pay attention to this week. Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, Missouri versus Texas A&M. Also on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, Pitt versus SMU. So that will be a really good game. That's a back-to-back for them. Mm-hmm. And then Friday at 7 p.m., Kansas versus Arizona State. And Saturday,
they're starting Big 12 play with a bang. Like, normally you build up to the teams that have a chance to win, but they're like, no, we're just going for it.
Honestly, I like that. I want to see these matchups now. You've played good schedules up until this point. You should be ready to go. Let's see it. And then we have Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, TCU versus Baylor, which is a good kind of ranking there. That'll be a good test for TCU. And we'll see what Baylor has going on.
Thanks for your patience while our baby became very chatty this week.
She had lots of opinions.
She was squeaking and squawking, but she had a lot to say. So thanks for your patience with that. That being said, baby's chattiness, she got a little impatient. So here I am finishing this by myself. But that concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaking in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, you can reach out to us on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week.